Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar on SupplySide Global. SupplySide is one of the biggest events in the health and nutrition industry, and this year in 2025, they're actually expecting 20,000 attendees and over 1,600 exhibitors. So we decided to host a webinar on how to navigate this conference in the best way. And in case you do not know who I am, my name is Susanne Mitschke. I am the co-founder and CEO of Citruslabs, and Citruslabs is the leading provider in decentralized clinical trials for consumer brands. And we work with a lot of supplement brands, but also cosmetics, functional foods and beverages, as well as pet health brands. And we help brands to substantiate their product claims with gold standard clinical research. And my guest today is Matt Crane, the co-founder and chief science officer at Semaine, a prominent women's health brand. Thank you so much, Matt, for being here today and volunteering your time. Matt and I will talk a bit on how to navigate supply side best and how you get the most out of this conference. And these at these events, there's a lot of people who are just wasting your time, and events like supply side are expensive. So you want to get a good ROI out of it. And Matt and I will talk exactly about that. But before we go into the nitty-gritty, I let Matt quickly introduce himself and Semaine.
Perfect. So excited to be here, and thanks for inviting me. It's really fun to talk about this because Supply Side is one of the conferences that I really love. So my background is I'm an academic, PhD in bioengineering, and then postdoc at a few different universities around the world, and then ended up starting Semaine Health with my wife because we started a kind of personal passion and experience. So she has endometriosis and really painful periods and kind of had her health journey, and I was basically a patient advocate. And so kind of leveraged my science background and understanding to design some products for her. And as a result of that, we spun up a company that just kind of expanded upon that. And so it's something that, from my perspective, right, that supply side is really interesting because there's it's basically where everybody goes to find out new ingredients and suppliers, right? So it's like, I think from kind of within the wellness space and nutritional space, there's two major conferences everyone goes to, right? There's Expo West, which is kind of for finished goods and brands, where you're trying to make a splash if you have a new product you're trying to launch. And the supply side, where basically I feel like the manufacturers, the ingredient people, kind of the nerds go to basically find connections for when you want to build that brand. And so, given my background as an academic and someone who really cares about the raw materials, the ingredients, the quality, and sourcing, supply side is where I really enjoy spending a lot of time.
And I think that supply side is kind of the sister conference of Expo West, right? Expo is in Anaheim, and you mentioned it, all of the hip brands go there, exhibit. And then supply side is where suppliers, ingredient providers go, manufacturers go, or even research organizations like Citruslabs. And why are you attending supply side? Is it just to find new ingredients?
So for us, it's really changed over time. So when we first launched, it was, attending SupplySide Global. There used to be a conference called SupplySide East,
Mhm.
and attending that as well, where it's like really to identify, I guess, to pre-screen people, right? So it's like you can go online and you can try and identify who you think has good science or good sourcing. But there's something about being in one gigantic room where you can go through and screen a bunch of people that's really helpful. As we've grown and scaled, our purpose has kind of shifted, right? So now it's convenient because we have different contract manufacturing organizations, or even like research organizations like Citruslabs, or raw material suppliers, and it's half my time now is really spent meeting with them, right? So you're basically meeting up with old friends or colleagues or collaborators, and you're spending time rebuilding that relationship. Maybe there's a little bit of contract negotiation in terms of pricing, but that's about half of my time, right? Where it's like maintaining relationships with existing suppliers and vendors. And the other half is discovery, right? And that's kind of, I guess, the part that I get most excited about because you can wander the halls, you get ideas about what people are excited about, and also potentially find new suppliers or new raw materials that you might want to innovate on.
And do you actually have KPIs when you go there? So, for example, a specific number of people you want to talk to, connections, new connections you are making, or do you have like a very specific goal in mind, or is it just to hang out with friends?
That's a great question. I think, and this is maybe it's good that we're talking this way instead of to my board. But I don't tend to have really detailed KPIs. I think the detailed KPIs really would come from some of the specific relationships, right? So it's like if we have a specific material provider, right now, I think anyone watching this or anyone attending, right? This year has just been chaos when it comes to costs, right? So
Mhm.
there's um, there's not been a single part of like my job or our business that hasn't been touched by the constant fluctuations in tariffs and pricing and trying to figure out ways around that. And I feel like um, a lot of that has meant that we spend a lot more time on the phone with our existing suppliers trying to figure out how we'll do, cost sharing and maintaining those relationships because we want everyone to win. But that's part of it right now is it's specific KPIs around maintaining those relationships or maybe specific, discounts or cost sharing that I want going into this. And then also I think there's something about identifying new suppliers, right? Because it's like the challenge with right now and moving forward, right, is that tariffs are crazy and completely unpredictable. And so that's really made it hard to do any sort of accurate forecasting. And that's where the human touch becomes a lot more important because I think there's something about KPIs are great, but only in a predictable environment, I'd say. Where it's like right now, I think, some of our tariffs, it's like we do everything, all of our manufacturing in bottles, right, is aluminum, right? So we really care about sustainability and the environment. And so our bottles are aluminum and they're imported, right? Because there's a lot of most aluminum manufacturing outside the US and the tariffs on that have fluctuated like crazy. And so we have to maintain good relationships with our suppliers to figure out, so they trust us and we trust them and cost sharing is important. So I think the human element of conferences like this can't be understated.
Yeah, I agree. And going back to more predictable stuff versus tariffs, right? So the show is about 1 month away. And how far in advance are you preparing for something like that?
That's a great question. So uh we tend to get dinners with some of our key suppliers booked up at 3 months in advance, right? So it's like we and I think that's really key. If you have a key relationship, everyone knows they'll be attending and you plan probably 6 9 months in advance if you know if your team is going to be attending. And so getting those dinners kind of on the board is critical 3 or 4 months in advance. If you're looking for kind of a lunch meeting, those can be done kind of maybe a month or two in advance. But for us, I think every night is booked up. Of course, there's like, one night we're going to the Sphere. So that's, of course, obviously important if you're going to Las Vegas. But I think from the timing standpoint, I think every day there's kind of how I structure it is really that there's the key meetings, which is a dinner and maybe a lunch or kind of early morning sort of meeting where I'm trying to maintain those relationships. And then interspersed around that is kind of the extra sort of things, right? So you have those key pillars that kind of form the foundation of the day, and then you slide in other things around that. And I plan, yeah, 4 to 12 weeks in advance.
And that's interesting. So you mentioned dinners. Are these one-on-one dinners with like your key suppliers?
Yes, yeah, generally one-on-one dinners, and so that's where or yes, the supplier and us, and so we might both bring a team and a small team of people, but it's really one-on-one, and those are the people where it's like the kind of I guess the key if you're spending anywhere from 20 to 30% of your cogs with a key vendor, then that's when you have the dinner with them. And so that's really it's a one-on-one relationship building and maintaining. And maybe then over, a bottle of wine, you'll discuss some sort of additional terms if that kind of, push comes to shove.
And that's a good that's a good transition. How do you actually think about budget when you attend a conference like that?
So for us, it's and I would say I think about supply side versus Expo West very, very differently, right? So Expo West is super expensive from a brand
Hmm.
perspective, right? So it is wildly expensive. We've never gone. I mean, we've gone, but what we do is we hang out in the hotel rooms or the
Hmm.
hotels around it and talk to investors, right? So it's like we don't even walk the floor because it's like, well, why are we going to pay, $3,000 a person, $4,000 a person for a badge, right? That's just silly from our perspective in terms of an ROI. So Expo West, I think you have to honestly, I think you have to have a really good reason to attend as a brand. Supply side is really quite inexpensive from a brand perspective, right? Because we're the customers there. And so we're showing up, we're trying to find new people to collaborate and work with. And so supply side, if you're a brand or a startup or someone who wants to create a product, it is really inexpensive, really easy to do. It's like there's no reason not to go, and you'll just benefit from it. Honestly, that's like it's the clearest no-brainer conference from a brand perspective, and so that's what's really nice. And so for us, um, the ROI is really easy because we have a number of different contract manufacturers and suppliers, and it's easier to fly to one location, attend a conference, you get some new things out of it, and you get all of your contacts there at the same time. And so it's really almost the ROI is bigger, less from a cost perspective and more from a time and energy perspective. So we're all tired, we're all doing a lot of different things. I think if you have a startup or you have a brand, and so being able to condense travel time and meetings into a 3 or 4 day period instead of visiting 4 or 5 different locations is just phenomenally valuable kind of from that energy perspective.
And the conference itself, supply side, so the exhibition is 2 days. It's on Wednesday and Thursday. And then there are some educational sessions on Monday and Tuesday. And I'll fire now a bunch of questions at you. So first, which days are you attending? Do you attend all of them? And it seems from what I'm hearing, the answer is yes. And how do you actually structure your days, when you're attending? So do you have like a couple of hours where you actually do a walk on the floor, or it seems that you are more like planning everything out to like the T and know exactly like you do lunch on like Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday with these people, dinner with these people, and then you probably have a lot of meetings around it as well.
That's absolutely correct. So I would say there's I guess like the key pillars, which are meals typically with the key suppliers, right? So that's the kind of foundation. And then around that, so I think we'll be there, and is it Monday to Friday, Tuesday to Friday? I forget. So I should look at my travel calendar before. But we'll be coming in kind of, early because of the kind of a necessity, honestly, to maximize meal capacity. I'd put it that way. And so those are the key foundational aspects. I think Wednesday and Thursday are the biggest floor walking days. And so I do budget time specifically for that. We don't, right now, we're not looking for any new contract manufacturers, right? So in the past, when we were looking for, new partners, that would be a key goal. Would be like find, 10 to 15 contract manufacturers for the specific, you know, item that could be good, have a discussion with them and try and see if I feel like they know what they're doing. Whereas right now, I think it's a little bit more serendipity, right? I think
Mhm.
I love the science and I'm kind of our head of innovation here as well. And so you put yourself in a situation where there's people who are excited about new products, new materials, and new ways of doing things. And you kind of just have to be exposed to that and leave yourself open to, I guess, the muses talking to you and seeing what can come of that. And so I really do think that having 2 to 3 hours a day on the conference floor just for those opportunities to arise and kind of innovation to happen is really, really important.
And is it really
Oh, and going back as
serendipity?
well.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, Oh, I think, um, I think it's serendipity. I guess I think it's like what is it like the saying like a chance favors the prepared mind or something like that, right? Where it's like
Yeah.
um you have to be prepared going in, but there's connections that you draw um that you wouldn't have drawn if you didn't leave yourself open to innovation. Yeah. So generally as well, like we pitch to retailers over the summer or we'll come up with new innovation. And going to the fall is kind of a chance to take, I guess, the innovation pipeline that we've developed and we're thinking through, and then kind of pressure test it or see if it should go in different directions. So yes, a combination of serendipity and also just chance because the conference is so big. I don't know how anyone goes through the booklet and figures out like, yes, I should stop by these specific booths if you've never heard of them.
That's true. Yeah, it's a lot of work. We are currently going through like all of it, right? And we're going through all exhibitors and everyone attending. It's a lot, unfortunately. So serendipity is a good way to approach this. And speaking of, how to approach, who to approach, so supply side has this app. Where you connect, or can connect with everyone attending, with everyone exhibiting. And as I said, there are about 20,000 people attending, and you can definitely not speak to all 20,000 people. So how do you prioritize who to talk to? Is it just like what's currently on your agenda? Who do you like what kind of supplier do you need? And then you're just going into the app and looking like who's attending from who you want to talk to. Is that how you do it?
That's for us. That's the baseline, and I think so. Honestly, it's infinitely easier being, I guess, the person everyone wants to market to, showing up, right? Where it's like so. Every single one of our vendors or contract manufacturers or those sorts of things is sends me an email to be like, hey, we'll be at supply side. We'd love to meet with you, in the slot or something like that. So that's really easy from my perspective, and so that narrows it down a lot, and makes the kind of a key pillar work really easy.
Mhm.
Um, then the other aspect would be honestly, I'll ask for a lot of recommendations, right? And so that's where it's really nice. Like if we if we're looking, I feel like it's interesting because there's 20,000 people attending, but also the space is really honestly relatively small. I feel like, right? It's like almost everyone in the health and wellness space or kind of, supplements or that sort of stuff ends up having some familiarity with everybody else. And so it's um it's pretty easy once we've worked with suppliers for a while or worked with a manufacturer or working with you guys, right? It's like, we love working with you. We've had, phenomenal success. And so, and you have a lot of other, clients or familiarity within the space. And so it'd be something as well, where it's like, if we were looking for somebody, we kind of pre-screen by asking our existing partners, right? Where it's like, hey, we're looking for something different. You don't provide the service, but you know someone who does because we like you're trustworthy. So probably people who are also trustworthy. And so that's kind of where we start with is kind of, I feel like that if we're looking for some specific new innovation that our existing partners can't help us with.
That's a very good way to go about things like recommendations. And when you talk to like 20, 30 people in a day, how do you keep track of all of these conversations? And then also, how quickly do you follow up with people? I guess like when you do a floor walk and leave things to chance and serendipity, I guess it's also how excited you are about like a specific new innovation, specific new ingredient. And if you are a little bit like me, like if you find something that you're really excited about, you probably can't stop thinking about it.
That's exactly, I think that's exactly right. Which I think is kind of like the what allows the serendipity to work is because if you talk to somebody and you get really excited and then you talk to 20 additional people within the next hour or two and you're still thinking about that previous thing, then it's pretty exciting. And so um, this is kind of bad, but you collect tons of materials, right? You collect tons of brochures, tons of cards from people. And so pretty much at the end of each day, or even in the middle of the afternoon, I'll start to weed through and be like, okay, well, I can't even remember who this person was or their product set, so they all go in the trash, right? And so then you kind of whittle it down. First, there's a first pass the day of, I feel like where you just eliminate things that weren't of high interest, and then um, end of the day, I'll take some notes, right? So I'll take some notes about like these are the people I talked to, these are the ideas I came out with that I'm really excited about. And then I do think there's a challenge on when to follow up with people. And maybe that's a question for you guys as well, because sometimes we'll follow up immediately. And I think the attendees, right, the exhibitors are just overwhelmed, right? So I think the best is almost to follow up a week and a half later, because
Mm.
then they've had time to basically recover from the show, get back home, deal with some of the other emails. But I feel like following up immediately um, is a challenge. What I also do is if I'm really excited about something, I'll make sure to show back up the second day just to make a further impression, right? Because everyone's busy. And what I want to do is, if there's a specific vendor or something that I'm really excited about, by going back and talking to them again and again, it's at these shows, right? Everyone who's exhibiting, I think they don't know, they get tired. They don't know if the people they're talking to are genuinely excited or interested. And so by just exhibiting that genuine enthusiasm that like, hey, I liked your stuff so much yesterday. I was really excited about it. I wanted to stop by again and tell you, then that stands out in their mind and makes that follow up a little bit easier.
That's a really good hack, because once you like you had like one impression one day, and it was if you were excited about something, it was likely mutual, because excitement is kind of contagious, right? But then when you do it again the next day, I think that's brilliant. So you will definitely leave an impression, and you will likely not land in the trash like your card.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think there's something like just right. It's like the neuroscience of it, right? It's like, sleep helps you build memories. And so it
Yeah.
cements those things. And if you come back again the second day, it's like it's doing that, classic sort of like, reinforcement principles of neuroscience. And so yeah, exactly. And enthusiasm's contagious. So
And you mentioned a little earlier that for you, as the brand at supply side, it's very easy to attend because everyone wants to talk to you, right? And from your perspective, what do you wish more suppliers or service providers did when they approach you, like specifically for that conference? And are there any red flags you see and you recognize, and you then decide to not meet someone?
that's a great question. So one of the things that I think is and this has shifted. So I think there's like the general practices in terms of things. But when I'm attending, I'm often looking for kind of like a first pass in terms of ingredient quality or sourcing or pricing.
Hmm.
And so if someone we've had this a few times where we've met with someone that we were excited about, and the team on the floor clearly didn't have any decision making power or any ability to kind of guide us through the process, right? And so just to give us some early discussions, right? So we even had, there's one vendor we were working with. We'd had meetings before supply side, met with them for about an hour at supply side to have discussions. Um, and still there was like this structure where they couldn't make decisions and give us pricing, right? And so
Mm.
empower your team that's on the floor, I think, in some way, because if we're there and, if I'm genuinely excited about something, my goal is to speed up the development process and the development cycle, right? So it's like I want to be able to to identify great partners and then see if we can get as close to an execution agreement as possible, right? It's like maybe it won't happen because everyone's busy, but at least to like move further down that process. And so when I'm talking to somebody and it becomes fairly clear that they're um, a relatively low sales person, that the organization has to like pass up through a few layers, then that as a small brand, a small startup, right? It's like that immediately turns me off because that's a red flag because I know that there's going to be so many layers of
Mhm.
approval that even if I greenlight the project, it's not going to happen for another 6 months because there's going to be, four VPs that have to sign off on the pricing agreement and the development thing. And so that to me is the biggest red flag that, and it's not so much about the vendor, honestly, or the person exhibiting, it's about the structure. And so um, I guess that would be it. Like empower the people as much as possible who are going to be attending.
That's good. Yeah. Even like we had it some time when we were looking like for some vendor suppliers we are working with, right? If someone takes it like even like 6 weeks to get your pricing, like to me that's a red flag. You should know your pricing. It shouldn't take 6 weeks.
Yeah, exactly, right. And that's like, and or yeah, even if you have to find out, you call somebody up, right? But it's like if you have to find out that you have to like get approval to be like, okay, there our standard add-on to this is 15% because it's
Yeah,
a material. Like just have that pre-built because yeah, 6 weeks is come back to me after 6 weeks and I'm moved on. Like it's
exactly.
like yeah,
It also shows me that you're not transparent because you're giving me a different price that you're giving another company, right? Because otherwise
e-
you would know your pricing.
exactly. That's so true, right? Where it's like yeah, otherwise you could type it up on your spreadsheet. So
Exactly. Yes. Oh, well. Well, let's also talk a little bit about, burnout and energy during these events. Do you have a system for managing energy so that you have enough energy when you are sitting down with, your most important meetings, like for dinner, for example? So how are you thinking about that?
yeah, so I'm I guess two things. I think Vegas can be fun, but it's also I think it's a sensory overload. And I'm an introvert, so I think there's something about like the lights and even just the casinos, right? That can be really dark or something like that, where it's like I find it very disorienting. And so I I do definitely make sure that I get like a solid couple hours, right, of just personal time, after the show, pre-dinner or something like that. And so because I think there is something about knowing how to manage energy. If you're an extrovert, maybe it's your dream scenario, right?
Hmm.
But I think it's working with your body, and so there's something for that that's really important. And then the other dynamic I think that is really key is um, by establishing like knowing which meetings or times are most important that you can just reserve the energy for that. And so there is something about when possible, I try to make reservations for restaurants or things like that that might be honestly off the strip because it's a little bit easier to have discussions or it's a little bit easier to have meetings. And so I think depending on uh, your capacity to do that, I think that could be really valuable. And then as well, it's like all the standard things, right? It's really easy to get thrown off your exercise or diet sort of routine as you're traveling, but maintaining that, I think, traveling, whenever I travel, it's getting that, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes of like, a run or some hit workouts or something like that really is helpful to make sure it kind of cleanses your brain.
That's fantastic. You know what we are doing? So my voice is not very strong. So typically at these conferences, when you are like in that conference hall, it's so loud, right? And they cannot understand me because they have a very high pitched voice, and then it's harder to understand when there's a lot of noise around. And anyway, don't have a super loud voice. So a booth for us would be like my personal nightmare because I know that like day two, I have no voice anymore because I literally have to scream so that people can understand me. So what we are doing is we're not having a booth, we're actually having a cabana at the pool, and the Mandalay Bay has a beach. So we actually booked a beach cabana.
Honestly, I think that's brilliant because I'm the same way. Like I cannot project. I need to learn how to talk to my diaphragm. But like by day two, I'll be hoarse, right? And that's
Yeah.
I don't even have to talk to as many people. So I think that's brilliant, right? So that's I mean to actually be able to have a discussion with people and an environment is brilliant.
Yeah, because then you're outside, right? And we hope that people can catch a little bit more energy. So if you feel down and you just want to hang out by the pool, you can come by the Citruslabs cabana.
I will. I mean, I will be there anyways. But now that I know you're going to be, I'll spend the extra time. So that's amazing.
Nice. That's fantastic. And you mentioned at the beginning that you're going to the Sphere. Is there anything else that you're looking forward to because it's in Vegas?
So the Sphere is so they're doing the Wizard of Oz, and
Oh, nice. Yeah.
and so my wife is a huge Wizard of Oz fan, so she's actually has some ruby slippers to wear and some stuff like that, and so that's gonna be really fun, and so um, that's I think going to be the highlight, and then honestly I think the other thing is just meeting up with friends. I feel like everyone that we work with, we've worked with for years now. And so it's nice that the most of our collaborators, I call them collaborators, right? Even though it's like we buy from them, right? Work with them, but they're friends, and so that's what I'm most excited about is because we'll have people coming in from South America, from New York, from maybe even Italy, and so that'll be really fun to have those sorts of discussions face to face and meet people that you forget they actually have boss because you only see them on Zoom.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's always good to have like, these connections and so for us because we are a remote team, we actually our headquarters is in Vegas. So we are also treating it a little bit as a mini
Ah,
offsite. Yeah, and it's good to be back in our home base almost.
that's a, that's amazing. So is your whole team going to be, or most of your team's going to be out there?
Yes. So yeah,
Okay.
our tech guys are treating it a little bit like our engineering team is treating it as an offsite. So that will be good.
That's amazing. Yeah, that'll be fun. Because yeah, to get to meet you and Jody and some of the other team members as well. Like I had never
Yeah.
met you in person, so that will be
Yeah,
that will be fun.
exactly. It will be a big party.
Yeah, exactly. On the beach in
On the
Vegas.
beach. Exactly. Exactly. Well, Matt, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you very much for your wisdom. And if people want to get in touch with you or learn more about Semaine, how can they find you and how can they learn more about Semaine?
So absolutely. So if you want to reach out to me, just matt@SemaineHealth.com. It is really easy. Then as well, our website, SemaineHealth.com. And you can also find us, Amazon, we're all at Walmart nationwide as well. And I love talking about the science, and it's so important to me. So if you have any questions, we do have white papers. We've got some study data that we actually ran with the Citruslabs that are included in the studies. And it's yeah. So get a hold of me. I'll be at the conference as well, and I love to geek out about kind of underlying mechanisms of action of different products. And if you are looking for a CRO, I strongly recommend Citruslabs. We've had such a phenomenal working relationship with them, and it's one of those things where we keep coming back again and again for additional trials. So it's a pleasure to be on here and talk with you, Suzanne. But also, just want to say, anyone watching, that Citruslabs is a great partner.
Well, thank you so much, Matt. Now uh I'm blushing.
Wonderful.
Thank you. And thank you also for your partnership. It's wonderful to work with Semaine as well and work with a brand that puts science so much like front and center.
Thanks so much. Well, and yeah, and I can't wait to meet you in person on the beach, and you'll find out how tall I am in real life. So
Oh
that'll be an
yeah.
exciting discovery.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, I'm excited about that. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Thanks,
Bye.
Matt. Bye
Bye.
bye.